they're interested in selling a product, which means that they don't care, or they shouldn't, and I would honestly say they should not be caring about whether the consumer is eating every night, or whether the consumer has a bed to sleep, or whether the consumer is being hired by them, or all of this type of stuff. I don't think that's the concern of any corporation, me personally. And in that instance, I guess I would differ with Chuck D in that opinion. However, if it wasn't for Chuck D saying what he said, I would have never been able to do a Sprite commercial myself. Because what Chuck did, and not only Chuck, but Chuck D, Jesse Jackson, a lot of the other activists that went up against the corporation saying, you're taking all this money out of the community, put something back. I don't know that that was accurate or an accurate argument morally and ethically, but it was an accurate strategy in bringing money into the black community to appeal to the guilt of the corporation. So I say that to say that the corporations, in my opinion, don't have an obligation to the people. I will say that straight out. The people have an obligation to themselves. If you like a product that a corporation is putting out, buy the product. If you don't like the product, don't buy the product. Whether the corporation is feeding you every day, whether the corporation makes sure you have a job every day, whether the corporation feels that the corporation, why must the corporation take care of you and sell you a product? That shows weakness on your own part. Are you or are you not a man or a woman, or should I say a woman? The point here is that today, the corporation has gotten to a point where there's been so much guilt laid on them that they are hiring younger and younger and younger executives across the board, black, white, Spanish, Native American, people from other countries, so that nobody can say nothing bad about them. But what's happening now is that these younger executives are manipulating the image of the company as much as they can to make the company more hip, more aggressive, more progressive. And I think it's a good thing because it moves the company forward with the times. But in another breath, it might also weaken the community arguing against the company, because once again, we're begging to be down with massa.
So what are you promoting with your Nike commercial? Are you promoting something, how are you promoting Nike today?
Right. Well, with Nike, Nike was always a fashion statement in the hip-hop community. All sneakers were a fashion statement in the hip-hop community. And there's two things that an artist like myself is up against. One is the political ignorance of the people that I'm surrounded by, my own people. And I say political ignorance very respectfully because they don't study politics or political science, but they got all these beefs about politics and what the white man is doing. And so, on one breath, when I was called to do the Nike commercial, it was about redoing a song by Gil Scott-Heron called The Revolution Will Not Be Televised, in which is a song that black people in particular take very, very close to heart. The revolution will not be televised. Now, when Gil Scott-Heron did that record, I don't think anybody in the 60s and early 70s realized how big television was actually going to be in society, because I think now the revolution will be televised, if you ask me. However, we did the song, and I think it was Nike's way of saying this is as close to a revolutionary message as we could possibly come. We are not a revolutionary company. We're not advocating no revolution. We're not trying to be down with no revolution. We're trying to sell a sneaker.
So today's sneakers sell with revolution.
Sure, and it always has. Everything in capitalism is up for sale. The revolution, you're behind, you're mine, The company itself is up for sale. Everything is up for sale in capitalism. Now, if you have a problem with capitalism, there are many socialist and communist
All
states
right, check,
that
check,
are
check.
countries that you can
How's
go to
everybody
and
feeling
live.
today?
However, we shouldn't be
I think there's
hypocritical
maybe
about
3 or 4
this.
people
If
that
you're going to
even know
live
that
and
this
flourish in
stream
capitalism
exists
and
right now,
enjoy the
so
fruits
if
of
you want to say hi in the
capitalism,
chat, I always
then you have to
appreciate
get
you.
in and fight with the big dogs. So Nike comes to me and says, Chris, you always wanted to get a revolutionary message across to a wide range of people. Here's your chance with our banner behind you and with a sneaker behind you.
Maybe it's not a little bit like a joke.
No,
No?
no.
Why not?
Because think of it in terms of this. When I sell a record and advocate revolution,
Okay, everybody,
is
let's
that
see.
not a joke?
Let's get into this a little bit.
Oh, no, it's not.
You've been hearing, if you've
Think of the
been
vinyl
in
and the cassette and the
the
CD
waiting room, you've been
as a
hearing
pair of sneakers.
KRS-One
It's just
sharing
a
some
different
wisdom with us.
configuration. It's the same product. It's a product trying to be sold. So me as an artist, okay, I'm coming off of I want to advocate a message to the people. I honestly think that I have something relevant to say. Uh, I have a yearning in my own heart and mind to
Here's the man
advance the
himself. You know,
minds of
I love
people
me some
across the world.
KRS-One, one of the
But to do that,
greats,
I can't do
90s
that
hip hop,
standing on a
defining
box
an
like Malcolm
era,
X used to do.
temple of hip
Hey
hop,
man, you got to get yourself
deep
together. This is not the times we're
revolutionary
living in. We're
historical
living in on
thought.
television, radio,
You don't know about KRS-One,
a
you need to get
market which
yourself
is so
educated.
technical that you have satellites in the universe that can look down through walls and see things the size of a quarter. That's a different type of revolution. That's not the revolution of Malcolm X. That's not Martin Luther King's revolution. That's not Marcus Garvey's
We're gonna
revolution.
do
That's
some
my
breakdowns of
revolution.
KRS-One at some point on this stream. Right now, I'm just sort of using this as a bit of a
Revolution.
screensaver, get
Martin Luther King,
some intelligence
1996
onto
to
the stream,
1956.
some intelligence to help us all out a little bit
1996.
before we jump
All
into the
angles.
substance of our discussion
What do I
today.
do with that?
Hey, how's it
I start
going?
by first of all getting a job.
Let me bring this interview down so that we
My
can
job is that I'm a
chat a little bit for a
musician.
moment.
Now that's not who I am
You
first.
know,
I'm a
too many
philosopher.
audio inputs can confuse the brain. You know how it goes. I'm still figuring out the audio situation, as I'm sure y'all can tell. You know, just getting used to this whole setup, you know. So yeah, if you caught any of what I was up to yesterday, we were doing some breakdowns and discussion of Studio Ghibli and some of the history there. We took a look at Miyazaki's uh, Miyazaki's response to artificial intelligence technology from way back in the day, and sort of got a sense of why he has an issue with some of this stuff. We also did a somewhat more thorough breakdown than what I intended on a specific AI meme image that's been making the rounds lately because of this most recent open AI thing, whatever they've been doing with the most recent GPT-4, and you know, apparently the image generation has finally expanded a little bit. Um, you know, just like a thought there quickly, just to sort of add a bit to it. Um, yeah, this stuff has been happening for a while, man. This stuff has been happening for a while. There's been new AI tools that come out every couple weeks or months. Um, and in case you haven't seen, I'm gonna pull up. Let me see if I can actually find this. Because I myself have done, and I mentioned this yesterday, I've done some AI image generation in the past. I probably don't have too many of these images left anywhere at the moment, but let me see if I can find an example of of the sort of stuff that we were generating. Let's see. So I've got this big folder. In fact, why don't I put this up on the screen for you guys? Make sure I'm not sharing anything too goofy or sensitive or personal here, right? um, said don't need that pane. Turn that off. And can we turn off the details pane? Yes. Okay. Maybe you can see some of this. Okay, so this is my Mid-Journey asset folder, and this is a fairly large folder. I had generated multiple folders with this sort of material in it, but as you can see, there's some really nice images in here. This one in particular, I think, is a nicer image. Look at that. And I know I did a pretty thorough breakdown yesterday, sort of explaining some of the issues with this type of artwork, and there are a lot of issues in this image as well, especially as you zoom in. A lot of the same sorts of stuff we were talking about yesterday in terms of tangency and just like different different ways in which the line art is not the cleanest, not the most readable. Shape language, there's a lot of issues with an image like this, but it's still, I would say this image is as good as anything that the most recent Mid-Journey or the most recent GPT-4 is outputting, at least in terms of artistic quality. Um, of course, we're dealing with different subject matter here. We're looking at a landscape. We're not looking at human faces, and I think we tend to be more impressed by things like faces and hands because as humans, we look very closely at faces and hands, obviously, right? Um, and let's see, I don't think I have anything in this folder that is specifically figurative. This is mostly material that I had saved for um, potentially using as assets in a 3D workflow or kind of deriving some useful image textures or something like that from it, right? But there's a lot of different kinds of stuff in here. Let me show you this one. This one I think is actually informative and it follows up on the previous discussion well. This looks like concept art, and you can see the specific advances that are coming with the most recent GPT-4 release. This text is, of course, utter nonsense, and in many cases, we don't even have real letters, right? We're just looking at symbols that resemble a letter, right? And you zoom in closely on any of these components, and this is just abstract surrealism, once you zoom in any closer, right? But you can see the intention here, a lot of the vibe here, right? This image, let me open up the properties because this is going to be valuable for you to see. Um, Properties. Okay, so you can see that this image was saved to disk in October of 2023. So these images are about 2 years old. All right. And when I pop one of these open, and these are Mid-Journey images. Mid-Journey was always, one of the better systems for generating this kind of imagery. Still, you can see like, okay, at this time the resolution is a little bit lower. We'd probably get some cleaner details in some of these small areas, right? Um, in fact, let me see if I can pull out the pen tool so you can. Oh, did they get rid of that? No, no, no. They still have it. Okay. Markup. That's what I want. Okay. So I'm talking about these kinds of areas, right? This sort of stuff is probably cleaner in the most recent GPT. Okay. GPT-4. I just realized my camera is turned off. Hi, guys. So yes, this stuff is obviously cleaner in the most recent GPT-4. If you're asking it to do line work specifically, right? Like, I mean, clean line work was notoriously difficult for a while. You can see that in an image like this one that I showed you before, or this is a different iteration on the same image. But if we zoom in to some of these areas, we can see the line work is getting very indecisive, you know? But overall, I mean, the rendering quality, the understanding of color, um, it's all there, right? The biggest improvements that we're seeing with the most recent GPT-4 update, it seems like we're getting better resolution. It seems like we're getting text, right? Which is nice, but again, like Adobe's been able to do text for at least the last year and a half, if not more. Um, and we're getting some high fidelity replication of Ghibli's style specifically, right? Which is telling me that they are training on a lot of copyrighted data. Okay. And we knew that this was an issue with Sora as well. There was that famous moment where an OpenAI representative is explicitly asked, hey, does publicly accessible data or does publicly available data, you say you're training on publicly available data, does that include YouTube videos? And the lady pulls a face that has gone down in meme history ever since, as one of the more embarrassing moments for this company. Um, the short answer is yes, they're probably training on copywritten information, like YouTube videos, like Ghibli's movies. If we're being perfectly frank, they probably dumped entire Ghibli films into their most recent model, and that's why we're getting such a high fidelity replication of Ghibli's style. But that's not new tech. There's nothing new in this tech, right? And there was a tweet from Altman yesterday that we looked at a little bit, and maybe we want to talk about this more at some point. He essentially says, oh, I've done all this work for all these years to try to make an artificial general intelligence to train to save the world, and now all of a sudden, when I make, a Studio Ghibli, style transfer engine, all of a sudden everybody's obsessed, and I can't stop hearing from people about how cool my product is. My suspicion, Sam, if you ever see this, which you probably won't, but my suspicion is that the reason why nobody cared about the AGI stuff is because the AGI stuff was fantasy and wasn't leading anywhere. You can't actually use this thing to save the world or whatever. He had some idea for like some AI driven crypto money system or something. Like they always come up with some weird idea, like we're going to use biometric data to run the economy or something like that, and then like the AIs will do it for us or whatever. That might be a fun thing to dig into at some point, like some of Sam Altman's, yeah, crazy ideas that you've stopped hearing about. Right? Because there are definitely some wacky ideas that these guys have, and this happens all the time. They have wacky ideas about tech, and then you stop hearing about them after a little bit because the idea doesn't work. And they don't want to go down the same route as Elizabeth Holmes, right? For those of you who are in the know, Elizabeth Holmes, for years, promised a magical blood testing device that would somehow be able to do a full suite of blood tests in a space that is physically impossible to do that kind of work. You know, the machine was literally too small. The magnets were so close to, other parts of the apparatus that they disrupt, the test that you need to do there or what, like stuff like that. Like the technology was fundamentally never going to work under physics. But Elizabeth Holmes, she wore a black turtleneck. She dropped her voice a couple octaves and went around talking about how she's the female Steve Jobs, and people just threw gobs and gobs of money after her. Cut forward a couple of years, turns out that she's been, engaged in fraud, and now all those investors want that money back, and she can't seem to find it. You know, and this is something that happens pretty often in the world of tech. That people people try to sell you on an idea that if you know about the science, if you know about the engineering, if you're, a nerd about stuff and actually care, the idea is going to sound at the very least a little far-fetched. And maybe you go along with the idea because, you think technology is cool and you want to be optimistic and, you want to give people the benefit of the doubt and not assume right off the bat that you're just being had, right? But something doesn't compute here, And there's a number of folks in the world of kind of journalism and tech commentary and social theory and so on who've been making this point for a very long time, and I think more folks really need to start listening to them. But there's just a lot of fraud and deception in this world, and a lot of fraud and deception specifically around technology that relies on people not knowing very much about it, including very wealthy, otherwise knowledgeable people, investors and that sort of person. A lot of them don't necessarily know that much about, computer science or information theory or how to actually build and launch a product or any of that sort of thing. And, you want to be there on the ground floor when the next Apple happens, you know? You want to be there on the ground floor when the next Microsoft happens. And, folks just make certain mistakes and they make certain mistakes fairly consistently nowadays. It'd be great if they could stop making some of those mistakes. Um, but that's kind of how humans are, right? The Dutch had their whole thing with tulip bulbs, and now we're having our moment in the United States, right? Well, that's just a little follow-up on yesterday. Today, I think I'm gonna keep it a little bit more casual. We're just checking out some of this KRS-One, and he's a great guy. We're gonna have to talk more about sort of what he's up to and or what he's done over the course of his career. Because again, folks don't know their history. And this is something that I would like to try to help some of y'all with. For now, I'm gonna start out by warming this up on some painting, and let's see what would be. I want to give us something to think about while we're doing the painting, rather than just like kind of painting in silence. So let's take a look at what's on my docket. Stuff I wanted to go over for a bit. There's of course, tons of stuff going on with the elections and Elon Musk and all, blah blah blah. That's cool. I don't really want to chew on politics too much right now, it's heavy, heavy stuff happening in our world. but you do need to know what's happening. You know what? Let's see. Let's do this. Because there's a little bit of a conversation happening around Francesca Fiorentini, formerly a contributor to the Young Turks. And she's a very smart person and tends to have a lot of insight. So, and there's been a lot of conversation around her and the Young Turks recently as a media outlet. It's sort of like what's happened there. There's some opportunity to discuss a little bit about like media literacy and world historical stuff and all that by going over this one. So what I'm going to do is just, let me see, is there a way for me to just post in the chat? Yes, indeed. So I just put in the chat a link to this video so that y'all can check it out. And if you want to check it out on your own time. And we're just going to have Francesca discuss, will Elon send feds after Tesla protesters? This is a very interesting discussion, and again, it touches on like tech stuff and AI stuff and all. Elon Musk is always an excellent source of joy. A source of consistent joy, abundant joy. Elon Musk. So I'm going to put that off to the side, and then I'll just be doing a little bit of warm-up painting while we're checking that out, and then we'll sort of see what goes from there.
Chatter. We got I believe his name is, I believe it's Ben, my boy, who's going out. A lot of you have gone out and protested outside of Tesla dealerships. It's pretty chill. It's pretty normal. There's probably a Tesla dealership in your town. And this is a bridge too far for Mr. Free Speech. He's okay when he has to throw his heart out. Okay, he's okay when he allows Holocaust denying memes and actual anti-Semitism, not speaking out against Israel, when he allows that on his platform, the artist formerly known as Twitter. But it's a bridge too far, and he's back on Fox News just with all the tears, and again. This has been a week where news of Pam Bondi, Attorney General, saying that people protesting outside of Tesla or like flipping the bird at a Tesla, or targeting Tesla will be.
So I'm worried getting a bit of a theme here. I'm going to sketch a little bit, if I can, try to capture some of the body language that is happening in this interview because sad Elon body language is fascinating. It's fascinating.
Be charged with domestic terrorism. Obviously, I'm exaggerating. They all are very upset that a few Teslas got burned down in Las Vegas, which again was very uncool. Nobody looked at the fire and thought it was cool. And but it kind of got eclipsed by the whole oops, I leaked a bunch of coordinates for F-18 bombings in Yemen to a journalist.
Really just like you can see
here is Elon Musk back on his
really collapses
back
into
crying.
his shoulders when he's
the people pushing the propaganda that caused that guy to do it. Those are the real villains here.
So he's talking about the person who was burning the dealership, right? So he's saying oh my God, he thinks it's more nefarious. So there's no way this could be me in my role as an unelected billionaire sitting right hand to the president, hollowing out, long-standing agencies that have helped lift Americans out of poverty, keeping them out of poverty, like Social Security, like Medicaid, making sure they stay living with a roof over their heads and they are not sick, and that, children with mental disabilities and physical disabilities get education or a, I don't know, seniors eat or whatever. Couldn't be that, people like, our dear friend in the chat are losing and their families are losing their jobs. But
Okay, so this is very funny to me. And she's kind of clowning on this point, right? Which is that Elon Elon has a very hard time understanding or and no, let's make this a question, okay? Because I don't actually know the answer here. Is it that Elon Musk has a hard time understanding why people have an issue with his public behavior and his role in society? Or is it that he doesn't even think that people genuinely do? You know what I mean? There's something that happens when you control so much. You know, when you have so much control over the world around you. Like I can't imagine that he has an especially realistic idea of how the world works. Okay? You know what I mean? Like I think because if he needs something or if he wants something, like let's suppose that he's hungry or he's upset about something or whatever, or he wants to like go do something, he's been feeling anxious or whatever lately. He never has the thought, oh wait, but I can't. Oh wait, but I need to save that check for next week. Oh hey, we just got some who's this who just Pastelli. Hi Pastelli. Who's Pastelli? I actually have some viewers today. It's kind of wild. It's kind of wild to think that like somebody might actually hear what I have to say right now. Mostly just very close family, You know what I mean? It's not like I'm broadcasting to a gigantic audience right now. This is just practice, y'all. Don't expect too much of me. Hmm. Nice. 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 So we got my sister in chat. And I can actually respond to people. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. No, this is great because it gives me the chance to kind of test out a little bit with folks who I know are not assholes. Um, it gives me the chance to test out a little bit, like is my audio working? Are y'all able to hear me? Is the latency okay? Is what I'm talking about making any sense at all? Are you confused about the format? Just whatever your thoughts or feelings or vibes are on this right now. As I said earlier, I'm just kind of sketching, hanging out, chatting. We're checking out some of what Francesca Fiorentini is saying about Elon Musk attempting to round up Tesla protesters. Yeah. No, I know what you're about, Pastelli. I know what you're about. I don't know that reference. Is Pastelli a character that I don't know? I'll have to let me know what's going on there. Um, yeah, so I guess the question that I'm wondering right now, and it's relevant because I'm doing this little study, this little sketch, just trying to capture the gesture of what like Elon looks like when he's sad, because he's been sad in several interviews now, right? And it seems like there's some part of him that is starting to get the impression that there are people in the country who have a big problem with him, you know? And I guess like kind of the question that I'm asking or that I'm wondering about right now is that is he finding out for the first time that there are people who have a big problem with him? Has he been that isolated for this long. You know, like obviously he has to know that there have always been people that have a problem with him, you know. But I think maybe 5 years ago or so, it might have been easier, or certainly before he bought Twitter, right? It would be easy for him to assume that the people who have a problem with him are like a relatively small group of haters, you know? Like everybody got their haters, everybody got their ops, right? And so like Elon Musk just been out here like yeah, yeah, whatever, I got my haters. But I think like earlier on this guy thought that he was a lot more popular, I think, right? And I think I could very much see Twitter giving someone the impression, like the way that he's built Twitter is giving him the impression that people like him. You know, like he thinks that he's a popular guy because of the kinds of replies that he sees, right? Mm. I don't know, this might be this might not be a relevant point, but I think it's worth thinking about um because like normal people, let's see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, so you Shasha, this is what we talk about. This is what we talk about on the regular, right? Just like around the house, and now I have a live streaming setup, and I'm just broadcasting my regular bullshit to the world. Oh, hey, so let's see. I think because it's I can't read right now. Well, I think it's because he really was a lot more popular because he was always like the cool billionaire. He's had that cool, relatable uncle vibe, which kind of always which kind of fell away after he bought Twitter. Okay. I'm sorry I'm having a hard time reading right now. The chat is very small on screen. I need to figure out, you know, because like there's a way that streamers that like real grown-up streamers do this where they have like their chat like running off to the side on screen somewhere. I need to figure out how to do that, and you know, maybe it'll make things a little bit easier. I've also seen people stream where they don't have the chat up, but they just put up like a top comment, you know, which I think I like that better. You know, like I don't think, and like I'm not gonna have a very active chat ever, you know. It's like gonna be a couple messages every now and then. So like, and I kind of don't like putting people on blast like that, you know. Like I feel like it's better to have this conversation going off to the side, and then like I can pull in comments. But I don't know. Y'all can let me know what you think. Um, but yeah, no. So this comment here from Pistelli, I thought what you're saying here is really interesting. Like the relatable uncle vibe. I think that's an interesting take. Because I personally like when I think of a cool uncle, you know, yeah, maybe like I could see that because my uncles are both like these cool like they're in the broad kind of creative, a little tech, a little business, you know, that kind of world, right? But yeah, no, like I don't see him as an uncle per se. Maybe, but like I think a lot of people did. You know, like that's kind of hitting me right now too. That like I think a lot of people did kind of see him as like kind of like an older brother or like an uncle or something. Where it's like yeah, sometimes he has a bit of a zany take, but he's like really smart and all that. Like that might be part of what's going on there. But I guess like but then my question is still like what's going on in his head? You know what I mean? Like he like he really I think has seen himself as a super genius for a long time, you know? And there's some weird stuff about just Elon in general. Yeah. That's the thing. We're not gonna be doing a Twitch stream anytime soon. That is a whole other universe where like, yeah, maybe at some point it makes sense, like I was thinking about this the other day. Like, do I want to like stream Disco Elysium or something? Because I haven't played it yet, and I keep hearing so many cool things about Disco Elysium. I feel like I'd have a lot to say about like the art and the ideas in Disco Elysium, in addition to like the game aspect of it. There's like I think that kind of thing is really fun. Like when you can get somebody on stream who can actually break things down a little bit more on the ideas and the storytelling and all that. Um, and not just like play the game and go, ugh, right? Um, but yeah, we'll see. Maybe there's got to be a way to like make the text itself bigger in the chat, like because in case y'all can't tell, my eyes are not always the best, right? Um, But yeah, that's sort of my question about Elon. Let's see. I want to know where Francesca goes with this because I've seen some of these clips before, and I know he's really freaking out about the Tesla oriented protests and like how much people are having a problem with him right now. Um, and so yeah, let's get a little bit more of this interview, and I'll keep sketching. And if I have a thought, I'll let y'all know.
Because a program to prevent domestic violence on pregnant women is being thrown away because of DEI. That couldn't be it. It couldn't be that. It must be Soros. It must be AstroTurf, guys. And I need you to understand, whenever you see what appears to be like a genuine right-wing movement, whether it was the Tea Party or whether it was some of the like the anti-mask protests, or that there's the right doesn't understand organic protests because their movements are
Damn,
always
Arun Pacha, I
astroturfed.
think you
Okay,
should
their
find that
media
British
outlets are
child.
astroturfed by big billionaire
Find
funders.
that
We just
British
talked about
child
Sunrise Movement fighting against fossil fuel
and
industry.
force them
So
to
many
account for
fossil fuel
themselves.
billionaires refunnel their money into
Also, how did he get
propagandistic
killed
outlets
by
like
a?
the Daily
Oh, is this
Wire,
like one of the
Breitbart, whatnot.
characters?
He cannot
'Cause
fathom that
I
this is
thought Disco
organic because, of
it's
course,
like
he can't. He cannot fathom
it's like
people
a
hate him this
RPG.
much. Of
Are you
course, he
playing
can't because
online?
that
Is
is
there an
what their movement
online
does.
thing? I don't think there is.
And we're going to go after them. And the president's made it clear we're going to go after them. The ones providing the money, the ones pushing the lies and propaganda, we're going.
Okay, let's take a look at what he just says here because this is actually really. I think this is kind of giving me a sense of the answer to my question. I'm gonna watch this again real quick.
Into propagandistic outlets like the Daily Wire, Breitbart, whatnot. He cannot fathom that this is organic because, of course, he can't. He cannot fathom people hate him this much. Of course, he can't because that is what their movement does.
And we're going to go after them. And the president's made it clear we're going to go after them. The ones providing the money, the ones pushing the lies and propaganda, we're going after them.
I actually kind of want to find the original Fox News clip. I'm checking this out right now. Dude, look at this demented body language. Let's just like actually I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. Elon Musk. I'm gonna keep this interview open just in case we come back to it. Maybe we won't, but let's see. Let's see. We're gonna go Elon Musk, Fox, Tesla interview. Is this the same one? No. This is a different one. What was that? Is it this one? This can't be. Do they like, is there like a stage switch up or something that happens? Because this was a day ago.
Thanks for having us.
God damn it. Freaking. No, yeah, this is Different. Oh, no, no, no. There it is. There it is. This is it at the end, isn't it?
What seems like incredibly fast action by government standards is it's slower than I'd like, to be totally frank. But we're all making
Oh
solid
my God. There's,
progress.
there could be like a lot of stuff to respond to in
A very sort of
this. This
thorny
guy is
problem
such a
was worse than
creep.
that President Trump was worse than Hitler, Mussolini, and Stalin combined. Do anything mean or anything that is wrong, that I would say morally wrong? Not even once.
You know, a lot is coming your way, but sometimes you say stuff or post stuff that gets attention. You give it out, in other words. Democratic Arizona.
Also, for those of y'all who don't know, because I know that some of y'all in the chat are not as news poisoned as me, all of these people on Fox News are some of the most lurid liars that you could possibly imagine. I have an answer. In disco, I got shit talked by a small British child. If you let Hank get too depressed, you lose the game. I see. I see. I see. I see. So there's like this is all like characters in the thing that are getting freaked out. Okay. Well, thank you, Arun Paka, for clarifying this a little bit. Also, hello, Arun Paka. Thank for the comment. Keeping my chat on life support here. Okay, so this guy this is Brett Baer, right? Anyway, I wanted to see if I can find the moment where he says like, "Oh, we're going after them," because that gesture was very, very pained. You know, like there was a lot of pain in that gesture that he makes there. I want to see it. I want to see Elon's pain. And you can already just kind of see in this
Solution
guy's eyes, right? Look at how this guy moves, man. Okay, let me kill the sound and let me see if I can just like slow down the playback speed. Does it let me go below? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we're gonna go down to 0.25. Just look at like 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 and I don't even know what he's saying here. But there's just like isn't this a like think of talking to somebody and they're talking to you like this. You know, like what's going on in this person's head? This isn't a happy guy. This isn't a guy who's in control or who feels like he's in control of the situation. This is a guy who's like trying to maintain control, right? And he's talking. And just for the record, Brett Baer, the guy that he's talking to, is an absolute ally of his. Absolute ally. You know? Yeah, no, like his face is uncomfortable to look at. It's uncomfortable to look at. And I don't know, maybe this is just like me kind of watching this like an animator. Because we do this all the time when we're doing like character studies and stuff, when we're trying to figure out how to animate it. I've had assignments like this where it's like watch someone talk on like, half speed or quarter speed and see like how they're gesticulate and it's like when the shoulders start kind of rolling in that way, and it's like there's a stiffness in the lower back. Like you can't even see his lower back, but you can feel that like the way his whole upper body is moving is very taut. Like there's tension. It's like he's clenching down as he's like, and he's talking to somebody who couldn't possibly be more in his corner. This is at the end of a 40-minute interview. This whole interview, okay? Like he's not debating anyone. He's surrounded by people who presumably agree with him. These people are all here to help him make his point, you know? And I guess like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So these are the Doge guys. These are the actual like teenagers that he's been bringing in to tear up the federal government, right? Um, or at least some of them. So they're here talking about what they're doing, whatever, fine. And then like, here's Elon, dude. You're surrounded by your gang. You're surrounded by your squad. Look at how freaking watery his eyes look. Doesn't he look like he's pleading with you? It's so weird. It's so incredibly weird. And so this is like this is giving me a thought then, with this moment here. I feel like I'm starting to put the pieces together. Like what did he think of himself? You know? Yeah, no, Doge is not a real government department, Pistelli. Like it's not a real government department, right? Because in order for it to be a real government department, they need congressional approval. They just do. That's how our laws work. Like you can't just make them a government department by presidential declaration and give them all the powers to legally do what they've been doing without congressional approval. At some point in the process, Congress needs to be involved. Congress has not been involved in any point in this process, except for one notable sellout moment from Chucky Schumer, which we'll probably bring up the Democrats at some point in this stream as well because it's inevitable and they're also remarkably bad at what they do. But yeah, no, just like hanging out on Elon Musk as a character in this overall theater that we are witnessing in our country right now. He's one of the main characters, right? And so I think it's worthwhile to try to unpack his psychology a little bit. This guy, yeah, like and I guess like that's kind of one of my thoughts, right? Like this guy, why is he like this? Like and think about it if you're writing a story, you have a villain in your story or something like that, and like there's no such thing as fundamentally evil people, I don't think. But there are people who do really, really bad stuff, and it's going to be really difficult, if not impossible, to turn them back after a certain point. Elon Musk is one of those guys, but even being one of those guys, he got there for a reason, like he thinks the way that he does for a reason. And yeah, I guess like I'm still trying to wrap my head around because and this is something we're gonna have to talk about. There's a film by this British journalist. Um, what is the name of that film? It is a documentary, Hypernormalization. Is the name of this movie. And it's a very interesting movie. I'm not sure I agree with everything that's in there, but it's a very interesting picture of what's happening in the late 20th and early 21st century with sort of how our society and culture has evolved and how technology has sort of impacted that. One of the big points that he makes in that film is that wealthy folks, especially in especially in the United States and Europe and the Western world and so forth, because of the advancement in our technology, it is easier than ever for a wealthy person to isolate themselves from reality, right? And I think that that's something that's been happening, you know, in bigger and bigger and more problematic ways for decades now. We're kind of seeing the pinnacle of that with this specific moment and what's going on in the US government and other places in our culture, right? That sort of like break from reality. Um, and I guess for me, I'm trying to assess for someone like Elon specifically, how how broken is his relationship to reality and where exactly did that break happen, right? Yeah, I don't think it's enough to just say like, yeah, he's rich and he gets whatever he wants. Like, you're like, yes, he's rich and he gets whatever he wants. That's a given. But how specifically does this happen with someone like Elon? And what I think this interview is indicating to me is that the break with reality might be even deeper than what I initially would have assumed, right? Because he seems genuinely disturbed by the backlash that he personally is receiving, that his companies are receiving, and that his Doge operations are receiving. That he just did this whole, like let's get all the Doge boys together on Fox and present ourselves to the country so that they can see like we're just normal guys. Like on some level he's still trying to kind of justify his own legitimacy to the people, which is fascinating to me. Fascinating. I would think that we were well past the point of any of these people feeling the need to even justify what they do. And yet, on some level, he feels the need to argue his case, which I think is very interesting.
It's
Yes, the man who, this is the South African who, God, why can't we deport this guy? He said that the problem with the West is that it has too much empathy. You guys remember? Let's just pause because you might have missed this.
This is great.
Elon Musk wants to save Western civilization, guys, from
Michael Burns, a fantastic creator on YouTube. He does a lot of philosophy content. He was on Wisecrack for a long time, if you ever checked out any of his stuff. Great pop culture commentary. He did a breakdown of this specific quote, which I think is very valuable. We might go over that at some point as well.
empathy. It's not really about save it from, the brown hordes, the savages. It's just empathy. The problem isn't
Pastelli, I want you honestly to gather up some of those thoughts you have about how Elon got to where he's at, because this is going to be a recurring subject, and I think it's like Elon's not the only guy we have to have this conversation about. We got to have this conversation about a lot of guys, and I think it's valuable to start piecing together the diagnosis, if that makes sense. Like we're doing street psychotherapy over here. This is street therapy, and therapy starts with a recognition of your condition. And right now we have a condition of Elon Musk and just kind of like wacky billionaires in general. My first stream, actually, I talked a little bit about, my first test stream, I talked a little bit about Greenland and what's been going on with Peter Thiel and the whole kind of libertarian fascination with seizing Greenland. It's been a theme for them for years and years now, actually, well before Trump. So, yeah, there's some nutsy ideas that are a lot more common among wealthy, influential, and powerful people in the Western world than any of us give it credit for. And I think it just needs to be a bigger conversation, right? It just does. Um, and yeah, like any thoughts that you have on like Elon Musk, like that also gives you a place to start breaking down what's going on with maybe Peter Thiel, right? Maybe Sam Altman, maybe Mark Andreessen, right? Like there's a lot of guys that we need to have this conversation about, right? And they're gonna come up. They're gonna come up. Um, and so yeah, no, like if you want to write down any thoughts and send them to me, that would be super valuable. Or we can like have a conversation off stream at some point, and I don't know, maybe we start cooking a video essay or something.
that you're losing your job and you don't know where your next paycheck is coming from, or you're losing your social security, or you have to go in person to confirm your social security status, even though you cannot drive, even though the social security offices are being closed around you. It's the problem is that we have empathy for the elderly. We shouldn't have empathy. Save Western civilization from empathy.
This is a fantastic point that she's making here. And yeah, she's she's right to point this out, and she's right to connect Elon Musk's comments about empathy to what they are doing with Social Security and welfare in general in the country. This is where the stuff starts to get dark and serious, like mm, like my grandmother could lose her ability to pay her rent as a result of how this guy feels. As a result of how this guy feels about empathy. Um, you know, it's great to laugh about this shit, but it does get real at certain points.
This is what he said to Joe Rogan. Okay? If they had another 4 years, they would legalize enough illegals in the swing states to make the swing states not swing states. Oh, great replacement theory. Who is they? What came next in the conversation may shine a light on what motivates
Great replacement theory is a dog whistle to talk about Jews, in case you didn't know.
Musk to cut down the size of the government and melds with his takeover, purchase, and founding of the company in the private sector. It's a belief that empathy for individuals is costly to the collective. We've got a civilizational suicidal empathy going on, Musk said. I love that. Like, I love when the villain can just be fully a villain. You know, that's the problem.
Like these guys sound like Marvel Comics characters. It's pretty bad. Um, I don't really have the energy for it today, but whenever there's specific conversation about like whenever these guys put their thoughts out there in a longer format, it's always really interesting and valuable to go over it, right? Because they're not very good at concealing their ultimate motivations or like the way that they think about the world or the kind of values that they have, right? Elon Musk, like when Elon Musk uses the word civilization, you can be damn sure he's about to drop some hot bullshit. Because like he's gonna start talking about his top level theory of the universe, his theories about society, and it's gonna be some musty, nasty shit. Because he doesn't read. Like that's one of the main issues with all these people is that they don't read, they don't study stuff, but they want to have like big ideas about society and the universe, and they just arrive at very simple conclusions, very selfish conclusions very quickly and very easily and hold on to them because they find some language that allows them to sound kind of clever. They think that they're being smart with this shit and they're not. But it's all right. It's all right. We'll probably, what might actually be fun. What might actually be fun is to start putting together like some of these like the social theory, right? Like maybe we can do some examination of Elon Musk and Thiel and like some of these other guys that will express their right-wing thoughts at a little bit greater length and see if we can kind of synthesize a manifesto, right? Because like they don't, real movements make manifestos, and like if you're like an actual intellectually grounded movement, you'll write down your ideas and you'll put them out there and they're like, this is what we stand for. The Republican Party used to put out a platform every election cycle. That's kind of like the more formalized version of a political manifesto. It's like your party platform. They stopped doing that. They stopped doing that, I think in 2020, or it might even have been 2016. That the Republican Party platform was just, yeah, whatever Trump wants. And they haven't really put out a meaningful platform since, right? They put out that Project 2025. I don't think that really functions as a manifesto, right? It's really more of like a guidebook for the people in the administration. It's not something that's meant to be read and rallied around by a movement in general. Um, yeah, this current crop, they're not great at putting together their ideas and manifestos. And this might actually be this is an interesting thing to chew on. Um, Trump has been how long has Trump been a political player? Trump has been a political player at least since probably 2014. But it's hard to say, right? Because he's a wealthy guy and has been for a long time. And being wealthy in the United States kind of makes you a political player by default, right? He's been involved in like, New York politics and stuff for a while, but it's always been like an extension of his business interest, more or less, right? That like he wants, you know, better deals on the taxes on his properties or something like that. So he greases the palms of a couple New York politicians and helps them help him, whatever, right? That's more or less like what being rich in America is, right? Like you scratch my back, I scratch yours. I'll donate to a super PAC every now and then. Um, but really, like, there's a specific moment when Trump decided I'm gonna be really involved, and it was there's an event that happened in DC. I forget exactly what it is. Is it like the press dinner or something like that? Or like maybe it was like at the prayer breakfast. They have these like fancy parties in DC every now and then where it's like here are all the top people that are gonna come hang out and we're gonna spend a bunch of money and give some speeches and some toasts or whatever, and we're gonna kind of like make jokes about each other, like maybe a comedian gets up there, right? Like Stephen Colbert has been at these things. Um, there was one in particular that happened where like Trump had kind of been complaining about the Obama administration for a while in a typical kind of like old man right wing way, right? Like is he really a citizen or whatever? Like Trump was really big into the birther conspiracy theory back in the day. He was convinced that Barack Obama was like secretly a Muslim and secretly not really from the U.S. That he's a foreigner slipped into our system to help corrupt it, right? um, which is thematically very consistent, right? And then Obama made a joke about Donald Trump, personally and directly, like made a joke about Donald Trump to his face at this dinner. He like got up there, he gave a couple of words, and it was like one of those really charming, like Obama, like Donald, like one of those kind of jokes, right? He's not a fan of what I'm doing with healthcare or something. It was something very like innocuous for the most part. Like I can't even really remember what it was, but there's footage of that dinner, and at one point the camera is on Donald's face. Okay, and that is the first time you see him make the face that he has been making every day since. Like he still makes this face. Let me find this for you. Uh, Trump, Obama correspondence dinner. That's what it is. White House correspondence dinner. Yeah, yeah. Let's see if we can get like a sampling of it. I don't want to watch the whole thing necessarily. This guy was charming, right, back in the day. This is why chat is valuable. We get onto little tangents like this.
My fellow Americans,
We'll just jump around a little bit so you can get the vibe.
by assigning all of you some reading that will help you draw your own conclusions. Others say that I'm arrogant, but I found a really great self-help tool for this: my poll numbers.
You can see that this is the vibe of the correspondence dinner. It's always like this, right? Like everybody's hanging out. There's all a bunch of, wealthy, fancy people. I mean, they make jokes together. They kind of like, make fun of each other or whatever, a little bit. There's a little bit of light ribbing or whatever. And there's a moment in here where he makes fun of Trump specifically, right? And you can see like, okay, like these are the tables, okay? This is the Politico table. Look at how many empty ass wine glasses there are on this table. There's multiple open bottles on this table. Look at these people. This is a party for fancy rich people, right? And let me see if I can find the Trump moment. Because the camera goes over to him. And like Obama was always like this, right? Like he makes a joke, the crowd is just like laughing and laughing. And like of course like people are drunk too. That's part of what's going on here. But you could just like everybody's having a great time, and Obama's like the comedian on stage, right? The coolest guy you could possibly ever freaking be. And let me let's pop this one open a little bit.
Correspondence dinner. What a week. As some of you heard, the state of Hawaii released my official long-form birth certificate.
That's what it was. Obama was making specifically a joke about the birth certificates.
Hopefully, this puts all doubts to rest. But just in case there are any lingering questions, tonight, I'm prepared to go a step further. Tonight, for the first time, I am releasing my official birth video.
There's Trump. There's Trump. Look at his face. Let me see if we can does it get closer in on him at any point? Yeah, yeah. Look at his face here. Look at his face. This is the moment that he decides he's going to run. And not only is he going to run, but he's going to take over the country and he's going to drive everyone even a little bit like Obama out. I am going to get rid of you people. That's what he's decided right there. I'm going to take over the country and I'm going to get rid of all of you people. Obama was born in this country, so you can see what he's doing here. You can see what he's thinking at this point. And it all makes sense. From this point forward, it all makes sense, doesn't it? This is April of 2011. April of 2011. Trump is here. He, at this point, very much believes that Obama is a Muslim and was not born in this country. He believes that Obama is not legally allowed to be the president right now, and that Obama even being in this position is a representation of our laws being broken, of our culture being destroyed, of our country being taken away from us, etc., etc., etc. Okay? And he decides from this point forward, it is my mission to remove the enemy from within our country. That's what's happening. Okay? And this has been his motivating thought ever since. It's actually interesting because I think he ends up in politics for a very similar reason to Elon Musk, right? Which is that Trump is not knowledgeable about politics. He doesn't really have like a theory of how any of this stuff works. He's just a guy who's been in these rooms and been in these spaces for a long time, really to further his own interest, right? Because like I'm trying to do real estate or whatever, I'm making deals, um, and so he sees politics as something that he can use to get his way, right? And he feels personally offended and slighted, and feels like anything and everything possibly going wrong in his life at this point, like his real estate deals aren't working out as well as they used to. He's not making as much money as he used to. He's not like a popular guy on TV anymore, right? Like remember, this guy used to have a TV show. right? This guy used to have big audiences cheering for him the way that this audience is now cheering for Obama. And at this point in his life, he's lost that. And he's getting older. All right. And he's looking at all of this happening around him and feeling like this is fundamentally wrong. These foreign, brown, effeminate, educated, whatever, these people, are taking my country from me, are taking away my opportunity to be as cool as Obama is right now. I should be the one on that stage. It's incredibly personal for him. Elon Musk also became increasingly involved in politics, largely because things were not working out for him very well in the business world. He having some issues with Tesla, having some issues with SpaceX. Like if you go and look up like what's been going on with Musk's businesses, they've not been doing very well for a while now. Like he has a lot of money behind him and there's a lot of hype behind him. But on the technical side, his businesses have not been delivering for years. Okay? Like Tesla's one innovation is that they figured out how to put a battery in a car. Okay? Which was something that people figured out how to do literally 100 years ago. There were electric cars that Ford was working on 100 years ago. They stopped pursuing it for various economic reasons. There's like incentive to use fossil fuels at that time. There was less of a cultural interest in using electric vehicles, right? So we kind of, but there were ideas for electric vehicles. So Tesla, grabs that, takes it a little bit further, puts it into a new car, puts a nice skin on it, and releases an electric vehicle at a competitive rate with existing gas vehicles, right? Other than that, there's not really and even that, right? Like other than that innovation, there's nothing that Tesla vehicles have brought to the table that has really meaningfully improved the driving experience, improved, accessibility to vehicles, made it easier for people to get cars, make the like on every other metric, Tesla cars are worse. Their only advantage is that they're electric, right? But they damage more easily. They cost more to repair, right? Um, they're more expensive to manufacture, even in a lot of ways, right? Because manufacturing those batteries is very tricky and dangerous. Their shops aren't unionized. The jobs that people get working at Tesla factories are very difficult and oftentimes very thankless from the reporting that we have. A lot of racism in his companies, right? Um, Jump over to SpaceX. Again, it's a similar story, right? SpaceX has made a couple of small innovations specifically around how the rocket nozzle aerosolizes the fuel, allowing it to burn less fuel per unit lift than traditional rockets, right? Than the ones that NASA was making 20 years ago, right? But like the thing is that SpaceX only looks so competitive because NASA's not making rockets. Okay? Because NASA's not making rockets. If NASA were still making rockets right now, they'd be making better rockets than that, right? Like the fail rate on Tesla rockets is ludicrous. No NASA rocket could ever like if they had NASA rockets that were blowing up as frequently as SpaceX rockets have blown up, then they would have abandoned that program years ago, right? And there's a lot of stuff that we can keep digging into, and more of this reporting is starting to come out. We'll probably see more of this over time. I think Musk has probably been fairly good at sort of concealing the extent to which his businesses are struggling. But between what's happening with Tesla, what's happening with SpaceX, what's been happening with Twitter, right? And then you look at everything else, like Elon Musk has been involved with a good half dozen or more companies over the last 10 to 15 years, and the only ones you hear about are Tesla and SpaceX for the most part, right? All the other ones, Like in general, his companies don't turn a profit. The Boring Company didn't turn a profit. The Hyperloop idea never even like got past the testing phase. His AI company is in the dustbin of history. Sam Altman has moved way beyond him on that. And OpenAI isn't even really that good. He was there on the ground floor at OpenAI and got booted because people didn't like to work with him. And like this is the sort of thing that you dig into this guy's background and you see this stuff again and again and again and again and again and again that like he's not that good at running these businesses, right? And under the Biden administration, there was a big groundswell in union organizing, and a lot of the union conversations were revolving around Tesla factories as well, right? There were a lot of critiques coming out about Tesla. Elon Musk is buying Twitter, and there's a lot of issues going on with that. Musk gets pulled into these Twitter conversations all the time, just because a lot of it is him trying to like kind of look cool or whatever, and then people are clowning on him. So like there's like a personal sensitivity, right? Like a personal feeling of like I'm on the edge, I'm losing step, I'm not as cool as I thought I was, or I'm not as powerful as I think I should be at this point, etc. I personally need to get ahead. I still need to get ahead. But the options for me to get ahead in the economic sphere or in business are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I don't have the opportunities there that I used to, right? So what are my options at that point? Well, maybe I get into government. And that's where we're at right now, right? Elon Musk and Donald Trump, I think, are working together because ultimately who else are you going to work with? Like they're the same guy. They're the same guy, and they want the same thing. The problem is that end of the day, they can't both have what they both want because they both want as much wealth and money and control as possible. And if there's two people with all the wealth and money and control, neither one of them has as much power as they could if there were only one, right? The, That's why you don't see a whole lot of a whole lot of dictatorships that are ruled by two guys. At some point, you gotta pick one, right? And it'll be interesting to see as that conflict starts to become more live, sort of what goes on there. My suspicion is that Trump will sort of fade and Elon Musk will naturally rise to the forefront just because Elon Musk is younger and Trump seems kind of checked out at this point. Um, but is anyone's guess? Anyway, that's my tangent of how and why Trump got involved in politics, and I appreciate Castelli having me go through that history a little bit. It gives us some valuable context, right? It gives us some valuable context as we start to kind of unpack the next iteration of this psychology in the form of Elon Musk.
That's the problem, I think, with sometimes, corporate Democrats is they're always like, we're doing this out of the goodness of our hearts, also my pocketbook. And I love that. Like, I love when the villain can just be fully a villain, you know? That's the problem, I think, with sometimes, corporate Democrats is they're always like, we're doing this out of the goodness of our hearts, also my pocketbook. And you're like, obviously, there's a difference. There is a marked difference. I understand between full-blown fascists, but there is something refreshing about like there is no more attempt to be the good guys. This is not the are we the baddies sketch. This is the we know we're the baddies. We shouldn't have empathy. We're going to go after the people who demonstrate against Tesla.
I slightly disagree with Francesca here. She's making a fire point, but specifically here where she says they know they're the baddies, I don't think they do. I don't think they do. I think Musk thinks that he's being clever and hard-nosed and cool by saying that we have too much empathy in this society. Like he thinks he's being Batman, you know? And people love Batman. So if I'm like, yeah, we just need to go hardcore. We just need to go hardcore. I think he thinks that's popular. I think he thinks that's popular. But I don't know.
Because I don't know, even though my own shareholders, the executives in my company, excuse me, the executives in my company are totally dumping their shares of Tesla, it's, we're going to go after people. And again, speaking of climate justice movements, it has been done before. Dealerships get burned down in protest, usually because in an act of protest against car culture and against fossil fuels. That's been done, and it's
We're almost there.
always labeled terrorism. So we are not really in totally
true.
new territory here.
That's true.
What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel
Check
right
out
now. Hit
Francesca's
that
channel.
button.
She
And
has
also, you can become a
very good takes on what's going on overall. I was actually just checking out. She did an interview as well talking about this abundance liberalism thing, which it is very goofy, but that's getting into like you know I don't wanna. Yes, Pastelli. He's trying to be punk without knowing what punk is. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. All these guys think they're punk rock. There's an idea, um, recuperation. Let me see if I can find this. Capitalist recuperation. They even have a Wikipedia article on it. All right. This is a very valuable concept. In the sociological sense, recuperation is the process by which politically radical ideas and images are twisted, co-opted, absorbed, diffused, incorporated, annexed, or commodified within media culture and bourgeoisie society, and thus become interpreted through neutralized, innocuous, or more socially conventional perspective. More broadly, it may refer to the cultural appropriation of any subversive symbols or ideas by mainstream culture. This is what's happening on the political right. Let me see if this one can give us some sources to where the idea is first discussed, because this would be actually really valuable to get a deeper idea of. This happens constantly, and it's really interesting to think about. Um, yeah, it's basically what Pastelli just said, that Elon is trying to be punk rock without being punk rock, without knowing what punk is, right? It's just like punk as an aesthetic, punk as like a label that you can put onto the end of something. This is actually really interesting. If you go over to Mid-Journey AI to sort of like connect over to something we were talking about earlier, um, I'm not going to because I'm not paying for their subscription right now, and I think that's kind of fuck that shit. But it's this idea, like in Midjourney, you can basically put the word punk at the end of any noun, and it will interpret that noun in a punk sense, right? So you could like write office punk as a style. Isn't that why? Like you put in like McDonald's punk, and you get like Ronald McDonald with with like a sleeve with like tattoos and shit, or like piercings, you know. And I think the whole political right in the U.S. basically functions in this way right now, where and this came up with Sam Cedars' debate on Jubilee, where he's like, Sam Cedars, an older guy, talks about progressive politics on his show. He did a little like one of those Jubilee surrounded style debates or whatever, Um, and all the conservatives that they got, it was like 20 conservatives versus one liberal, sort of like the setup, right? Um, every single one of these conservatives, they got the man bun, they got like the soft boy mustache and like the comfy sweater. There's like a queer cat showing up here with like the painted nails and stuff. None of these people had cowboy boots or hats or big muscles or beards or any of that. Like they're not the conservatives that you think they ought to be. And you know, a lot of this is because they're in California, but a lot of this is also recuperation, right? That once a symbol has been out there long enough, it gets interpreted by the mainstream culture, by the broader society, and in particular by the people who have wealth and power within that society. It gets interpreted in a way that allows it to kind of coexist with the broader ideals of that society, right? And in the case of, you know, Elon Musk and punk rock and all this stuff, um, like, I think, you know, like he saw him with like the dark MAGA hat, right? Like he has like he's an edgelord. That's what being an edgelord is. An edgelord is somebody who just kind of like recuperates constantly. Um, So yeah, no, and, you know maybe I'm gonna do a little bit of I'm gonna do a little bit of searching and see if we can find at some point some essays on the concept of recuperation. I honestly don't know where the idea of recuperation first came from or like who first sort of coined that term. We should look that up and try to find out more about recuperation because I think it's especially valuable to think about as an artist, right? A lot of times as artists, as filmmakers, as storytellers, we want to we want to create work that in some way pushes back on things that we see as problematic in our society, right? You want to inspire people towards, you know, better action and to reflect on things that aren't especially valuable, right? Or things that are problems in our society. Um, and yet, you know, like this happens all the time. Like I made this story as a critique of fascism, and now all of these like skinheads can't get enough of it. You know, like even think about like what is a skinhead, right? Like skinheads way back in the day used to be like communist labor organizers in the UK. All right. And at some point, everything about skinhead culture, the shaved heads, the tattoos, the leather jackets with the spikes, the Doc Martens, it all got recuperated into Nazi symbology. Right? So now if you see like a white dude with a shaved head and tattoos, if you see him in Portland, you assume he hates Jews. All right? Whereas back in the 50s or whatever, if you see someone like that in the UK, you assume that that guy hates cops. You assume that that guy wants like decommodified housing, you know? Like it's completely recuperated, right? And this has happened a lot with various subcultures. Like in general, you know, like far right subcultures leverage a lot of, if not the exact same aesthetic cues as more left wing ones. Like it's happening with hip hop right now. It's very much happening with hip hop. I mean, there's an argument to be made that recuperation is the fundamental thing driving the Drake Kendrick beef, right? And this is a conversation I really want to have about like hip hop and what's been happening with like Drake and Kendrick and the shit that's happening in the culture. We're gonna do on this channel a line by line breakdown of Watch the Party Die because I think that's one of the most significant pieces of music to come out of hip hop, certainly in my lifetime, you know, certainly in my lifetime. And that's saying a lot. There's been a lot of significant hip hop, but like I think we gotta take a look at that because Kendrick Lamar has a big problem with recuperation, right? And I think he's talking about it. I think he's pushing back on it, and it's tricky. It's a very tricky thing. And I'm not sure any artist has ever really figured out like how do you get around the recuperation problem. But we're gonna have to have that conversation. Um, yeah, if you have not listened to Watch the Party Die, let me. And I'm not gonna. I don't think I can play it 'cause I'll probably get DMCA'd, right? But Kendrick's usually been pretty good about letting people react to his stuff. But I'll pull up the lyrics or actually I'll pull up a link to it and drop it in chat. Watch the Party Die, Kendrick Lamar. Okay. Go listen to this if you haven't before. I'm gonna see if I can find the instrumental at the very least and put that up. It's not my vibe, I'm an artist professionally, but as you can tell, I'm also an artist with a big goddamn mouth and a lot of thoughts about the world, so it's great to have folks to hang out with and sort of share some of those ideas. Right now, we're not monetized or sponsored in any way. This is a little bit more of this. Let me know if you'll be interested in seeing any kind of like purely I'll usually, and I was talking a lot today because I was streaming, but usually I'll just like put on a video or something while I'm sketching or without needing to like really sketch in all the details of it. Like I don't want to do a full face right now. A little sleepy for that. It's also getting towards lunchtime, so I'm gonna have to jump and do some cooking. Anybody's interested, we're gonna talk about a lot of different kind of cultural subjects, and food is about as big a cultural subject as there is, you know what I mean? So like, if y'all want to have a little conversation about food at some point, that's definitely on my list. And I really hope other people find that interesting too, because I'd love to talk a little bit about food. God, his boots are so dumb. The fact that he's wearing boots nowadays really trips me out. Like he's just gone all the way there on the faux publican vibe, faux Republican vibe. It's like it's so goofy. You can tell like this is a motherfucker who does not wear boots. Are you kidding me? Like why would Elon Musk ever possibly need a pair of boots? That is wild to me to think about. Like this man is out here in boots. It's actually kind of creepy if I think too much about it because I feel like the boots are on like to him, for him personally, the boots are kind of an apartheid vibe. Like it reads very like kind of colonial to me to have this like South African dude out here like chilling in freaking cowboy boots. Holy cow. I guess we're done on that instrumental. But boy oh boy, man. Kendrick. Let's see if I can find something a little longer to wrap up with here. Can we do grammatics again? No, I can't do grammatics, but let's do some classical. Let's do some. Actually, I prefer Bach. Bach over Beethoven. Cello suite. The cello suite is a good one. Yeah, I used to start my morning every morning with this back in undergrad. It's a little cringy, I know, but it's just beautiful music. So, if you're sort of wondering about what I'm doing, I'm just being very loose with the, and like kind of sketching in the details of this chair, and just like trying to tie down the more or less final look and feel. You know, Pastelli, I don't think you should be cringing about your goth phase wearing cowboy boots. Cause like, I also had a goth phase, a little bit. I think all of us did. Me and all my siblings, we all had a goth phase at one point. First of all, that's fine. Our mother is like the ultimate, goth girl, so like it's sort of to be expected that we would have that at some point in our lives. Also, goth is dope. Also, cowboy boots are dope. We are, and like here's the thing. We grew up in New Mexico. So like cowboy boots are just like kind of part of our culture in a lot of ways. And like your clothes have a lot of kind of cultural significance behind them, like regardless of how you dress, regardless of where you come from, right? And like the same article of clothing can mean very different things in different instances. Is the music too loud right now? I see. I see. Maybe that's a little better. Maybe that's a little better. People can't hear me over the music, it seems. Okay, okay. Am I more audible now? See, this is also why I need to get that some kind of like chat overlay or something. It'd be good to be able to see the chat on the same screen as my same screen that I'm sketching on, you know what I mean? It's all good, it's all good. Here we go. I'm just gonna reposition the drawing a little bit. Like there-ish. That's fine. Because I'm also gonna crop this now. That's a good little arrangement. I might do a bigger, I might come back to this sketch and like finish it out or something, or am I in the wrong layer here? Something there. Okay. Kind of like doing these little like just sort of, because he's gonna have like a lot of light on him, right? So I can't Just when a character has a lot of light on them, it's almost like they're in diffuse lighting, you know? So the shadow usually just ends up kind of being like a pool underneath the character. And it's also a little simpler to sketch in this way, you know. You just sort of hit those contact points on the floor, make that a little bit darker. And contact points with the chair. You know, just a little bit to show that he's really gripping that knee, death grip. Here we go. Here we go. And whenever you do thought bubbles, we depict thoughts as if they're clouds, right? So I like to think about it as like a little kind of smoke simulation or something. Give that bubble a little bit of character, right? You could do a more traditional thought bubble if you wanted, but I think these bubbles give it a little bit of a little bit more depth, right? I think that's potentially valuable to give like some dimension to a thought when you're trying to illustrate it, right? Like the text for me, if I'm gonna put text in an image, it needs to be part of the illustration. You know, like don't think about the text and the illustrating as separate operations. It's all being illustrated. Okay, now that I have the text in there, I think I need to bring the whole composition over. Yeah, right there. And now I'm gonna close this off with one of my favorite brushes, honestly, in Krita. I love that you can do this in Krita. It's a fill brush. There's probably a way to get Photoshop to do something like this, but honestly, the way that this fill brush works in Krita is so elegant. I really, really like it. Just makes it so easy to kind of sketch in shapes and keep it loose and graphical without having to jump around between two or three different tools. You just sketch in the fill. Blender also works like this a little bit too with grease pencil. There's a grease pencil fill operation that's very much like this. And I like it in Blender as well, but I honestly I like it even better the way that it's implemented in Krita. Okay, that provides a little bit of readability. And honestly, here's what I'm going to do as well. I'm going to actually duplicate my line work here. Get really dark for a second, but that's fine because we're not actually going to keep it like that. We're going to blur the lines. This is something I do all the time. Blur the line work a little. Bring the opacity down. And then I'm also going to pop in a new layer. I'm just going to fill that with a middle gray. But I want to fill it with a middle gray that has this noise attached to it. Which it's not doing because I need to change the brush operation to pattern fill. There we go. And so now you can see we get this lovely, soft, fuzzy gray, which looks so good when you set your layer to like a soft light mode or something like that. And you might not see it over YouTube with the compression and all, but it just adds an extra layer of character. I'm also going to do a little bit of a gradient here. G for gradient, and I actually want a radial gradient. Go back to the default colors. Swap the default colors. How does this work again? I need to reverse the gradient. There we go. That's how you get a nice little vignette. And if your vignette feels like it's got a little bit too much shape on it, you can always, of course, blur your vignette. Bring that down to about 20% opacity. Just give it a minute to finish rendering out what's happening in that layer. Oh, it's the blur filter's taking a little bit. There we go. There we go. And that's probably about enough for today. Excellent. Excellent. All right, everybody. Well, there's my, yeah, a rune pocket. It's basically like a lasso fill. That brush is basically like a lasso fill. Super nice. I really like lasso fill. It's like I feel like lasso fill is one of the better fill operations. Let me just save out. I'm gonna save out this image for later in case I want to come back to it. And today is the 29th. 3, 29, 25. History really keeps happening, huh? It's nuts. All right, everybody. That's gonna be it for today. If you watched this far into the stream, again, really appreciate y'all. Thanks for hanging out. I'm gonna jump back over to our screensaver. I'm gonna let the music run for a little bit longer, and then I will be ending the stream. Much love, fam.